Welcome you and call to order the March 22nd Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are at citizens' comments, so if anyone would like to comment on any item, we've got two public hearings, so we will, if you've got comments for the public hearing, please hold them till the public hearing. But other items, Jerry Harmon, please.
Hello. I have several issues with items discussed at the study session and from a newspaper article that I read on Facebook. The first is limiting the speaking time of people attending the council meetings wanting to express their concerns. It's what I call a knee-jerk reaction by this council to this proposal. Why do you want to change? Council meetings are not lasting until 10 p.m. One already this year was over by 8 o'clock. I got home in time to watch NCIS, which I never get to see. You should be making a change because of a need, not because you want to get home earlier or you don't want to hear some of us. Some of you have said you don't like rules, like the derelict building proposal. But here you want to put more rules on the citizens that elected you. You represent us and should be wanting our participation. Mr. Clausen, you told Mr. Dorsey during the retreat that if he wanted to get in touch with you, call him. You only look at city emails maybe once a week. Mr. P., if I remember correctly, you were also in that camp last year when the discussion came up about using city emails and how difficult it was to get on there. People get no response from you that their comments have been read if they send a letter or an email. They don't know if they were even looked at. This is the only place we know you all hear our concerns. The second issue is about the proposal to give developers tax breaks of about 10 years, I understand. Have any of you done any research and comparisons on city our size, seeing if this is a good deal for our town? Or are you just listening to the realtors, the home builders, the developers, and going on hearsay? I believe we are still paying for a stadium that has been torn down. Boeing got huge tax breaks and still reduced the workforce this past year. Do cities ever really get the money back, or is this just another myth? I'm not sure there is a trickle-down effect anymore. Are you putting more of a burden on our citizens that they shouldn't have to assume? Do some real research. Present it to the community. See if the people want to assume the burden. What has Lowe's, Walmart, Fred Meyer's, McCormick Woods, etc. really cost us? Was the investment really worth it? Get some real numbers. How has it affected the police, the fire, the 911 services, the sewer problems, water problems? Do our taxes cover these expenses? I don't know about this website. It seemed kind of iffy to me, but one person put on Facebook about a strongtowns.org and said that small towns can't do what the large cities are doing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Jerry. Others wishing to speak. Mr. Wilton.
Good evening. I'm speaking this evening about the change of procedure for public comment in item 7F and any references made to public comment in 7A. All of the council members that were just elected, the mayor, and all of us that were not elected, at one point in time made a comment that communicating with the citizens was one of the most important things to help Port Orchard move forward. Here we are, now less than 3 months into the new year, looking at a method to reduce and control the communication from the citizens. One would have thought that after the election period, one of the things that would have been addressed would be How do we communicate in a meaningful manner with the citizens that elected us? But no, our elected officials are attempting to silence those that take the time to try and make a difference. Options provided by the council, phone calls and emails. Neither of those options are viable in that they provide no public record, require no answer or feedback, and can be blown off. The first comment period is to be items on the agenda. Those items are usually determined prior to the meeting, so comment is just whistling in the wind. The last citizen comment period can be used for any comment a citizen wishes to make, so long as there is time left of the 30-minute comment period. I understand that this is the council's meeting, Robert's Rules of Order and all that. I also understand what the word abridge means. Deprive, diminish, curtail, to shorten in duration or extent, to shorten by omission of words without sacrifice of sense. Quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. This change is a bad idea and should be rejected. Thank you, and I hope I have not wasted too much of your time.
Thank you, Mr. Whittleton. Others wishing to comment? Mrs. Whittleton?
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Whittleton, and I would like to echo what my husband has just stated and add to that regarding item 7F to be looked at tonight on the agenda. One question I had is they're changing some of the verbiage, and they're changing the definition to citizen, and I'm wondering if we have a definition for citizen, because I'm thinking that this could prevent people from speaking that are not citizens of our community. Just wondering about that. Another problem I see with arranging the citizen comment the way it is the way that it's presented is that if someone brings in a problem, they have to wait to the end before they can bring it up to you. All the discussion is pretty much over. You know, I've brought problems up before, and someone on the council would say, oh, well, maybe such and such committee should look at that, or, you know, it was regarding the fireworks and the fluoride and different things like that, but they took care of it then. If we have to wait till the end to speak, it's sort of a lost cause. And I do not see why we need to restrict ourselves so. We're having a very difficult time. I sent you all an email. I don't know if you got it or not. I assume some of you did, but I outlined some of the problems that we would have as a citizen community trying to give to you what our problems are. And so, okay, that's one scenario. Now, my other grief right now is that I was unable to attend the council retreat, and it was requested that we have a recording. Jerry had requested that, and there is no recording, apparently. And let me read to you the minutes, because the minutes are as follow. Except for the roll call, all it says is discussion. Council and staff held discussions on the vision and goals of the City Council. Staff presented their 2016 work plan to the council. For the sake of transparency and for us to understand what you guys are doing, we need something that's more complete. And I don't understand this. I don't understand shortening our citizen comment, setting it up the way it looks like it's being thought about, and also this. We really need to know what's going on, or we will feel blocked. And Jerry went, so I have her minutes, so I know what you guys talked about as far as Jerry went, but it'd be much better if we could document it, because it's just my word against your word, and we don't want it to be that way. We want it to be a working relationship, you know, our representatives and our community. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. I'm Shireen Lane, Marcus Lane's wife, of course. I live at 4251 Swift Avenue. Marcus asked me to read this letter to you because he is right now volunteering at the public library for a workshop for better employment from the college. So I'll begin reading. Dear council members, you know how important citizen involvement and awareness is when it concerns our city's government. I ask that you reconsider the resolution to limit the first comment portion to agenda items. I hope you will see that for the common citizen, it could simply appear to be a removal or restriction of their ability to freely and publicly communicate with this body as a whole. I understand that there are several methods of communication to each of you individually, but many citizens, I have been told, that have not always been successful at reaching you individually. Additionally, face-to-face is not always an easy or convenient when citizen wants or needs the whole council to hear their concern. This forum, then, is the only simultaneous and reassuring form of communication the public has to you all. The health of a represented democracy is each citizen having the ability to communicate with you all face-to-face, simultaneously and in a fashion that is public and on the record, especially in the formal setting such as this. Even though there are a small number of us who actively attend and participate in your meetings here or online, I hope you will understand that those who are not will reasonably feel that they have to wait until the end of the meeting is not just an inconvenient but an unnecessary roadblock to communicate to you about their needs, concerns, and fears. I know that Port Orchard politics is and has been very dramatic. I also understand that as our training outlined, that this is your meeting and not the public's. I just don't want the people of Port Orchard or anyone to think we are hiding behind the rules or using these rules as an excuse to curb public comment. You asked me once what I would do better to communicate or for outreach to the public. Maintaining the citizen comments as they are and within the 3 minutes rules is one of those existing tools the public already has and should have, and there's no reason to expect anything else from their public servants. Our city grows over the coming years. Our challenges will only increase with that, so our urgency and back and forth communication with the voting citizen. Please consider the future impact to the citizen and your decision tonight, and let us make forward progress with our communications to the public. Thank you for your attention and consideration. My apologies for not being able to deliver this message to you in person. So I have copies of this letter that I'll give to the clerk, and copies for everyone. Thank you for listening, and I'm sorry I won't be able to stay and finish attending this meeting because I got to get my kids home and to bed. So, but thank you for your time. I will definitely check up on the minutes or the video of it later. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to comment this evening?
I have quite a few things I would like to address, and wearing a couple different hats. From the Chamber of Commerce standpoint, I do have a concern with an item agenda coming up on the banner, hanging situation, the new ordinance prepared for that. First of all, I do think that the fee is pretty steep. It's a little unreasonable, onerous. I would hope that you guys would reconsider that. The limit of only twice a year when some organizations, they have multiple events going on. Right now, there's nothing going on down there. If Fathoms had wanted to hang it for the third time, they wouldn't be allowed to. Leaves a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot to be left up by the Director of Community Development that, I think Mr. Mon's probably got a lot of things to deal with, and I don't know if this is another one that he wants to deal with. So if there's some way to, maybe clarify that before we get to the passing portion. Then I am concerned about the non-commercial, the words non-commercial in there. I don't know how that sits in face of the Supreme Court's, who's to judge whether it's commercial or non-commercial? Is that a violation of the content neutrality thing? I would like to say that this was set out last week or this week by the clerk's office, the toolkit. I've got to say that it's the neatest thing since sliced bread, creamed peanut butter. It's great. I want to thank you and pass that on to your staff. That it was a great job putting that together. I'm going to try to cram all of my 9 minutes into this 3-minute little piece here. I want to say that the Chamber of Commerce still stands behind the school bond, and I would hope that at the end of the day that the City Council continues to support the school bond also. I would like to point out that everything on Facebook, everything you read on Facebook, is not true, that if there's going to be fact-checking going on, It needs to happen on when you read stuff on Facebook also. So I hope that that everybody keeps that in mind. But I would like to comment on the public comment issue, that this is not one that I am speaking on behalf of the entire chamber for. But I think that I don't know if the objective here is to stifle the community, to stifle input, to avoid hearing from the people. I would hope that's not the case. There are alternatives. Take a look at those. Have people sign up. Make people sign up. If they want to speak in the first session, have them sign up, put that they're going to talk about an agenda item. But historically, if we go back through and pull the records, I'm not sure, other than a couple times, that it's really been abused. So I would hope that you would consider alternatives before you come right out and squash that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Others wishing to speak? Mr. Ryan.
Need my glasses. My name is Don Ryan. I'm a resident property owner and business owner here in South Kitsap. First, I'm a local business owner that continually invests into our local economy and our tax base in many ways. I am a property owner of multiple real estate holdings and very aware of how much our real estate values relating to pricing, schools, new investors, and families looking at our market and how much it matters to them. I'm very much in favor of a second high school and how much we need it here in our town. Although, with that said, I am opposed to the property owners being the bearer of this bond and passing the buck and the cost of the burdens onto its taxpayers. Here's why. Ever since the McCleary versus Washington decision, our lawmakers have not done their job on funding our schools. Even our own Supreme Court has found that our lawmakers are in contempt for not funding our schools as they should. I understand they may be close to a deal, but any deal is still business as usual. While our lawmakers are mishandling our state taxes, and our state has seen nearly $70 million in new taxes from our new marijuana tax income in 2015. They only anticipated $36 million. That's double the income that they just received. They foresee in 2016 that tax revenue to be coming to $150 million. That's quadruple what they thought they would get. I looked up the state's website this afternoon, and I read that the state expects to see an additional $3 billion in revenue between 2015 and 2017 that they did not expect even a year ago. Who's counting the cash? Where is it going? As much as I am in favor of a new high school, and it is badly needed, I agree, I am opposed and fed up with the way our lawmakers and our system handles our finance. The only way for us as citizens to stand up and be heard is to vote no on this school bond, which I see as the only way that our lawmakers will make any change from the normal way they do business. I encourage everyone to speak to their neighbors, their friends, and their coworkers and explain why this bond is just another way to pass the buck to an already overtaxed people. This is why I'm opposed to the school bond, even though I understand and realize we need another school. One thing I have learned is has to be another way, a better way of doing things, either by cutting costs, finding new resources, or innovating our systems, which I believe the state has done. Please help force Olympia to make the right changes. We have to vote no on this bond.
Just a reminder here that this is the public comment portion of the meeting, and the public hearing on the school bond issue is later in the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I have another business meeting I have to be at, and if I was not allowed to speak before the meeting, I wouldn't be allowed to speak at all. So I think it kind of ties into what I heard 5 times.
Mr. Petro?
Petro, 171 Shamrock, hometown instigator, conniver, and hometown troublemaker. Over the last 20 years, we have seen throughout our county, through process and new rules, to limit the input of the public to our local governments. And this is another way to disconnect from your public. For over 100 years in this city, people could come in and make public comments at the beginning, and any item throughout the public meeting, you could make comments. And the people who were in your seats wanted to listen and hear what's going on. It's the one thing that we've hung on to in South Kitsap that makes us unique. We would have never got any headway with the de-sizing of the urban growth boundary if you didn't have open public meetings and open comments from the community. We would have never kept the county government here when they wanted to move the administration building to the Norm Dix building without lots of public comments in this room at this government. This is a populist government. You are here to represent the public, and you are the conduit to the public. This is not the city electeds and staff's meeting. This is the public meeting so that we can see what's going on in our government. Without our input, how do you know what's on the minds of your public? Old times, in my lifetime, at the end of the council meetings, the council came out and started talking to the people. The last 20 years, you guys don't want to talk to anybody. And I understand that we live in this sinful world lately of fear of our neighbor. But we don't need that in South Kitsap. It's the public input and the communication between our elected government and us is what makes our community special. Don't give that up. Don't give that up. It's unnecessary. Even this timing thing, that's a way to curb public comment. I look at this, I'm ready to do the quarter mile in the low teens, okay? We need input, dialogue, and that means you have to listen to something you don't want to hear. Like Thomas Jefferson said about newspapers. He goes, I hate them, but I'd rather have this kind of government with newspapers saying what they need than have a government without newspapers. I'd rather have an unsmooth government where you might have to sit here till 11 o'clock, and I've been in council meetings where it went till 11 o'clock, to get the dialogue between you, the elected, and the public, rather than not have it. You get worse government when that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petro. Others wishing to comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Ashby.
I will move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion? Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Discussion? Lucarelli.
I would like to pull item 7E from the business section of the agenda.
Okay. Motion to remove business item 7E from the agenda this evening?
Second.
Second, motion and a second. And I'd actually ask that that be pulled. The city attorney has not had a chance to review that item yet, and we didn't realize that until after the agenda had been published. So that will come back before us. So all in favor of any other discussion of this item? Okay, all in favor of removing item 7E from the tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We a motion to approve the agenda now is amended. Is there any other discussion of the agenda this evening? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. We are on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Clausen.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Okay, the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We are to presentations. I have a proclamation for Worldwide Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. And read this proclamation. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic, progressive, degenerative neurological disorder of the central nervous system for which there is presently no cure. And whereas Yet no chemical, X-ray, study, blood, laboratory, or clinical test can provide a definitive diagnosis. And whereas as much as 80% of vital dopamine-producing neurons in the base brain are dead or grossly impaired before Parkinson's is detectable, and whereas symptoms include extreme fatigue, tremors, difficulty with balance and speaking, walking, swallowing, cognitive and memory problems, and whereas, although existing medications and therapies effectively treat the symptoms for some Parkinson's patients in the early stages of the disease and allows them to cope with this baffling and complex disease, and whereas more education and research is needed to help find more effective treatments with fewer side effects and ultimately a cure for Parkinson's, and whereas, according to the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation, American Parkinson's Disease Association, National Parkinson's Foundation, and the Michael J. Fox Foundation, there are over 1.5 million Americans diagnosed with Parkinson's and 5 million worldwide. And whereas all citizens can be aware of this debilitating disease and offer friendship, understanding, and hope to its victims. Now, thereof, I, Robert Putansu, Mayor of the City of Port Orchard, do proclaim April 16th Worldwide Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. Is there someone wish? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My name is Julian Henderson. I have Parkinson's, and I would like to commend you for bringing this to our attention and helping those of you who may know someone. I'd love to talk to them or make them feel better. We also have another member here. You don't have Parkinson's, but she sure helps us, those of us who do. May I have that?
Certainly. I'll bring it down to you.
Thank you very much. Good to meet you.
Okay, we are on to our two public hearings tonight. The first is a public hearing and adopting a resolution authorizing the transfer and interests in the assets of CENTCOM from Kitsap County, of CENTCOM to Kitsap County. Clerk Reinerson.
So CENTCOM is a Kitsap County's public safety emergency communications service, which is governed by a board of elected officials representing Kitsap County and cities of Bainbridge Island, Bremerton, Port Orchard, and Paulsbo, and Kitsap County Fire Commissioners Association. These entities all pay CENTCOM services for their communities with public funds. It has been determined that it is in the best interest of all parties to create a new separate legal entity to be named Kitsap 911. To take over the operations of CENTCOM. In order to do so, all participants in CENTCOM that have used public funds to acquire the assets for CENTCOM, including real and personal property, and who have taken on liabilities for CENTCOM, will need to transfer those assets and liabilities to Kitsap County, which can then transfer them to a new Kitsap 911 upon its creation. Kitsap County has requested that the city adopt a resolution to release and transfer all assets, liabilities, and/or interest the city may hold in any property, including but not limited to real property, personal property, contracts, properties specifically identified in Exhibit A to proposed resolution number 25-16, or any other property currently held by Kitsap County for the operation of CENTCOM to Kitsap, so that Kitsap County can transfer the assets, liabilities, and/or interests of all the parties participating in CENTCOM to Kitsap 911 upon its creation. Staff recommends that the council consider all public testimony and evidence presented at this public hearing regarding whether or not to adopt proposed resolution number 25-16, barring any public testimony or evidence presented at the public hearing tonight which contradicts the facts set forth in the attached resolution, city staff recommends the adoption of proposed resolution number 25-16 to allow the release and transfer of all assets, liabilities, and/or other interest that the city may have in the property held by Kitsap County for all the operations of CENTCOM to Kitsap County, for the recognition and reestablishment of CENTCOM as a separate legal entity to be named Kitsap 911. Staff recommends the mayor open the public hearing for comment.
Okay, I'm now open the public hearing on the CENTCOM transfer of assets. Anyone wishing, I have no one signed up. Is there anyone wishing to testify on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Got a little bit of scrambling going on up here, and Councilmember Lucarelli's smirking at me because she's got paper, and the rest of us are dealing with our problematic Wi-Fi right now. And thank you, Mr. Kichardi. So I think I've got it reopened.
To borrow ours.
I just borrowed his iPad, so I'm looking for a motion on this matter, I suppose.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2516 to authorize the city of Port Orchard to transfer any assets, liabilities, and/or other interests it may have in property held by Kitsap County on behalf of CENTCOM to Kitsap County, so that Kitsap County can transfer all such assets, liabilities, and/or other interests to Kitsap 911 upon its creation.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. As the board member that sits on at CENTCOM, I can give a little bit of background here. This process has been going on long before I got on the board, and it's basically take CENTCOM and remove it from underneath Kitsap County's umbrella and move it to a standalone agency. All of us have a fractional share in these assets, so this process that we're going through here this evening is going on in Bremerton, Paulsbo, Bainbridge Island, where we're all transferring our proportional share of these assets into back to Kitsap County, who will then in turn transfer the assets as a whole to the new 911 agency. So how did I do, Sharon? Okay. Other questions?
I'm wondering why we don't transfer directly to Kitsap 911. Why are we needing to go through the county and then the county transferring to the Kitsap 911?
I think it's a matter of consolidating everything, because at this point, from what I understand, the Kitsap County is the one that's holding all of these assets on behalf of CENTCOM, and there are assets and liabilities, and everything needs to be under one umbrella, and in order to do that, it has to go to Kitsap County first before it can be transferred as a whole over to the new entity. And the new entity hasn't been created yet, so this step has to be made before we can even create that new entity.
That's good. There's multiple steps in this process. Mr. Clausen?
Well, I have a question, and I understand what the process is and what we're trying to accomplish, but the one piece that I'm lacking is, what is this new entity? Is it an entity that is going to be held by one individual? Is the assets going to be held by the different cities and the county? What is this new animal that we're creating?
My understanding, it's all of us will have a share in this, just like we currently do. Currently, the problem is that we have a policy board.
Well, I understand what the problem is, and I understand what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, when everything's done, this is still a public entity that is controlled by all of the jurisdictions.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
my question on that is similar to Councilman Clausen's question, in that at any point does this body approve the creation of Kitsap 911? At any point does this body have any authority over or any participation with, as we do now with CENTCOM? As you said, it's a several step process, and the first step is we're being asked to transfer any interest we have in any assets or liabilities to the county, and that's removing us from it. And so, echoing what Mr. Clausen said, we release our interest, and then we don't know or have had no input in what the end result is going to be. I'm assuming that it has been fully vetted and a great amount of due diligence has gone in to this creation. Unfortunately, this body hasn't been kept informed of that over the years so that it's been in process.
And I stepped in on the very tail end of this process, so I share your concern over lack of input, or knowledge, on the front end of this. What I do know is there is, until as we go through this process, if the end result isn't executed, we revert back to where we started at. There's a number of steps, and I recall that at our board meeting, that as we go through these steps, if we don't get through all of the steps and get the union, we still have to bargain with the union group at CENTCOM. We've gotten heads nodding up and down, but that has to be formalized. So there are a number of steps, and if we can't get through all of the steps, then we revert back to what we had previously. Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, is there a time crunch with this? Is this something that we're trying to meet a schedule, or can we?
Yes, we are.
It'd be nice to have a little more information on it, is all.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I reached out to the city in advance of this, and I think part of the answer lies in explaining what a public development authority is. And I'm actually trying to pull up the email that I got. I am having trouble doing that, but I got a response.
Because of our Wi-Fi.
And so perhaps it would be worthwhile to take a moment and have the attorney explain what a public development authority is as it's described in RCW.
And in the beginning stages of this, they looked at different organizations, structures, and this was, they felt, the best fit for this structure.
Right. So the people who are involved, and I like Mayor Potansuk, have stepped into this at the tail end as well. So we're all in kind of the same position. But the people who have been involved have been very good about getting me up to speed on what's happening. And I know that they did consider the city is currently a party to an interlocal agreement with all these other entities for CENTCOM, and they did look into just doing a new interlocal agreement for Kitsap 911, but they also looked into creating a public development authority, which is it's created by statute, RCW 3521, and it's a public corporation, and it can be created by a city or a county to perform a particular public purpose or function. And most often, public development authorities are created for a specific project, but they can be created for any lawful purpose or function that a city or county can itself lawfully perform. So that I know that they looked into all of the pros and cons of going one way or the other and determined that the Public Development Authority was the right way to go. So that's what got us to this point. And I don't know if that's all that you wanted me to touch on.
I think that suffices, general informs.
The heavy lifting on the legal work on this has been done by Ken Bagwell, who represents a handful of fire districts, as well as Roger Lubavitch from the city of Bremerton. So we came in on the tail end of this, Sharon and I, with Sharon reviewing the documents. I know Sharon provided a number of tweaks to the, in the wordsmithing of some of the documents. I've been following that tract, but. In essence, we're being asked here this evening to transfer these assets to the county so that this process can continue forward, and ultimately we'll end up with a standalone agency. One of my questions, my first board meeting, is why are we doing this, and is there savings to the taxpayer? And it appears the financial analysis that they had saved the taxpayers about $20,000 a year, and they felt provided a better form of governance. Yes,
Do you have an idea when this is going to take place, the formation of this?
They gave us hopeful deadline, I think, of April 5th to have all of the participating entities adopt this resolution so that they can move forward. I'm under the impression that they have either like a month or 2 months from now that they want to.
60 days out.
We're currently
to finish
working on
whole
the
process.
charter and the ordinance to create this and the bylaws, and that's all moving very rapid fire right now. They're trying to get everything sort of really, while people are really paying attention to it, get it all done in a pretty short order.
So you've been intimately involved in the development of this, whatever this new entity is, at least as far as bylaws and
Well, as far
who's
as
gonna
what's been
govern it
happening,
and all that.
as far as what's been happening over the past 2 months or so, yes.
Okay.
They've been working on this for over a year.
Well, I understood that it's been going on. I participated on the CENTCOM strategic planning exercise probably close to a year ago, and that's where I found out that there's a problem with its current form of government, and that was something that they wanted to do, but then I hadn't heard anything since then, so that's why I was curious. Now we're asked to turn over our assets, and what is it that we're going to end up with? So I just wanted to make sure.
Other questions?
Well,
Mr.
I just
Dino.
want to point out that the practical impact of Port Orchard appears to be very little. When you look at Exhibit A, there's a handful of infrastructure valued at $1.5 million in total. So I don't see, and those equipments are owned by CENTCOM and Global Tower Partners respectively. So the impact upon Port Orchard practically doesn't appear to exist.
But I think the issue is that it's been a certain amount of all these assets, regardless of who, whether it's in Paulsboro or whatever, has been paid for by tax dollars that came from Port Orchard as well as all the other jurisdictions. So whether it is directly owned by the city of Port Orchard is immaterial. It was some of our tax dollars contributed to establishing this operation, the radio system, the towers, and all of that. So that's why I just wanted to make sure at the end of the day, we're protected, I guess. By being involved in it.
We get, at the end of the day, we have the same operation under a different name.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with what I heard, and especially knowing that our attorney has been reviewing documents, so.
Other questions or concerns? Seeing none, we're going to be voting to approve a resolution authorizing the transfer of any interest in the assets of CENTCOM from Port Orchard to Kitsap County. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. All right, we are on to our second public hearing this evening, which is a public hearing in potentially an adoption of a resolution supporting the South Kitsap School District's general obligation bond measure for a new high school. And I have one person signed up, Mr. Chris Lemke. Would you like to go first?
Good evening. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Chris Lemke. I'm the Vice President of the School Board for South Kitsap. Been involved with schools along with 4 daughters for 40 years in South Kitsap. Kids mean more to this community as future leaders and the most valuable asset we have for the city of Port Orchard, our country, and our citizens, any other thing we can think of. So, with that said, the first thing I'd like to do is thank you for your endorsement the first time. I think your endorsement was very valuable. I think you all know we probably, in any other part of government where 50% plus ones makes it, we need to get 60%, which needs to get changed, by the way, because it's no way of doing democracy. We missed this thing by 36 or 38 votes. So the majority of the citizens in this community want and are behind the need for a second high school. So I think that's probably a very important thing for you all when you're considering a re-endorsement. Now, why did we, as a school board, make a decision to immediately go out and ask for another bond measure? Well, first of all, when we took over a year with the community's input to decide to have a bond, we all knew at the end, without any doubt in any board member's mind or the superintendent, this is a need, not a want. Our kids, our community need to have a second high school, to have the choice. They need to be future leaders of this country. So we're going to continue to run this as long as I'm on the board until it passes. We've been talking about it 25 years. It's time to get over top dead center and get this thing passed. I think that's a huge thing. So first of all, this bond measure is not about any grown-up. Everyone ought to understand that. It's about over almost 10,000 kids, 10,000 future leaders, 10,000 that are going to go someday, a lot of them, to serve their country. So it's a huge thing. So it's time to say, not why not Port Orchard, let's make Port Orchard what it should be and have a second high school. So what value of it is it to the Port Orchard Board of Directors and the mayor? Well, way back on my first term of the board, we went out in search of property for this bond measure, or for a future site for a second high school and an elementary or junior high. We found 57 acres. It took us 2 years to get it, and we saved a couple $1 million to get it. Kitsap County was our partner then. You annexed our property, so you're our partner. So I think that word is very unique, and what it tells us is we should work together as partners to create the best community we can for everyone, but including those that will take our place in the future. And when you're old enough, pay your Social Security benefits for you when they go to the workforce. So I think that's a huge piece. But along with thanking you, I want you to understand this. If we pass this bond, and we will, no matter how many tries it takes, we have to work together. We have to work together because you're our tax, you're the folks that annexed our property. You're the ones that are going to help us with all the infrastructure around it and all the things we have to do to get this school built. So what benefit is it? Partnerships have benefits for everyone. So the benefit for the overall city of Port Orchard is good schools, quality schools, keeping all kids in schools will do many things for you. But probably the most important thing it'll do, it'll drive business to Port Orchard, it'll drive new citizens to Port Orchard, and we will prosper. So I think that's a huge piece. And it's a huge piece that we all need to think about together. So I would ask you for your endorsement again. I would say there is nothing more important that you'll do sitting there right now, whether you're newly elected or been there for 20 years, as to create a second high school and a learning center for this whole community. I think you all know we're partnering with Olympic College. I think you all know we're probably going to partner with Kitsap Regional Library, and all of you will be able to take a class through Olympic College there. So let's get behind the kids first, make this a community we can all be proud of, realize we can't control the taxes. That's just the way it is. But we're going to do our fair share to make this a wonderful community for our kids because they deserve it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Others? Mr. Wall, would you like to speak?
Thank you, members of the council and Mayor Patansu. I'm Greg Wall. I'm the president of South Kitsap School Board, and I have with me Dr. Michelle Reed, who will talk. Since we were here not that long ago, and I noticed some people are appropriately dressed here tonight, that I'm not going to go over all the points why we think we should pass it, but I will say this, and I've thought about this a lot. Passing the school, we have extremely good financial and educational reasons for doing so. We need this school so our children can be better educated. We need this school to accommodate our growing school population. It's been continuing to go up, particularly in the lower grades. But I I also feel that passing this bond and building this school very well may represent a turning point in Port Orchard. I lived in Port Orchard since 1978, and I've rarely seen so much positive energy as we've seen around this bond. And I think it'll be to the benefit of all the citizens in a lot of tangible and intangible ways. So again, we would ask that you give us your endorsement. We came very, very close. It was kind of like hitting sort of like hitting a hole in one and missing by about a millimeter. It was not so good. But I feel pretty confident we can do it again. We felt that it was important to do it right away so that we could continue to have the momentum. And as Dr. Reed will talk about a little bit, the longer we wait on this, the more the school's going to cost us. So we would ask that you give us your endorsement and that you wish us the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Reed.
Thank you. And seriously, thank you for your support in the prior bond. It means the world, I think, to us as a district and also to our community. This afternoon, I did a very short video clip, which actually took an hour and a half to do, about 3 minutes. So I think I was not on my game. But we did review the fact that Orchard Heights was built in 1942, ostensibly originally as a military hospital. And currently is housing over 750 students, which has necessitated putting 6 classrooms in hallways. So our enrollment is really growing again. And I think, as Greg said, perhaps I'll use a different sports metaphor. I think not passing the bond last time felt a little like the last time the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl. And I know that's painful. Sorry, anybody that we're bringing that up. But we were like right there, and then people looked and said, did we really just do that? Did that really just happen, right? So we wanted to go right back out. And I know there's a cost differential to go out in April versus the fall. But we believe that it will also set us back perhaps a year in construction, and the cost escalation estimates for new construction are going to go up much faster than what we might have to pay in a differential for an election. I will also say that Mr. Donlin and I were at a meeting recently where we heard that the Puget Sound region is growing at roughly 7 people per hour in the last year. Jobs are growing at about the rate of 9 per hour. I think that came from you, John. Mm-hmm. And that of the 10 fastest growing cities in the Puget Sound region, the only one on the Kitsap Peninsula is Port Orchard. We want to make sure we have schools that will support the coming growth. We believe we do an outstanding job in our schools. We have fantastic teachers and staff and principals and so forth. Second high school is necessary. Peninsula School District has roughly 1,700 fewer kids, and they have 2 high schools. Central Kitsap has about a little over 1,200 more kids, and they have 3 high schools. So we're really sitting in a place where it's time. We're the largest high school on this side of the Narrows Bridge, and all our competition is on the other side of the bridge, which forces families to travel for any kind of event. So anyhow, again, thank you for your patience this evening. I know you have a difficult job with competing interests, but we would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Comment. Mr. Petro.
South Kitsap graduate 1977. My parents graduated from South in 1955. My grandmother graduated from South in 1927. Throughout all that time, South Kitsap has gotten off very cheap when it comes to facilities. EPO was built brand new when my mother was a girl going there. It was built by the Navy and given to South Kitsap. By the time I was going to EPO, this community couldn't pass bond levies to keep the property up. We would walk out the breezeway out of the hallway, and the gutters were rotted after 30 years because they were wood gutters, and you would, on a downpour, you would have just a waterfall coming down off the roof of the school. Now, in first grade and second grade, that was cool because you could stand in it and jump around and then be in a lot of trouble. But by the time you got to 5th and 6th grade, it was kind of a pain in the tuchus trying to go from one building to the other. Finally, the community got smart and we voted to build a new high school and tear down EPO and build a new school and remodel Orchard Heights. Now those buildings are 30 years old now, and we've got to fix the high school, don't we, to keep up with plans. That's stewardship. We need to vote for that. To take it another step, that high school, we only paid 20% of it. 80% was paid by logs sold from state lands. So it's an honor to be able to vote for a bond levy and build your own schools. So in closing, I want to say this. Vote South Kitsap for the bond levy. Vote South Kitsap, schools build our community. Vote South Kitsap. Hell, it's not much money, so vote, yes, I say vote yes, for the bond levy. Amen.
Yes, sir. Are you sure you want to follow that?
That'd be pretty tough. Mayor, councilmen, councilwomen, good evening.
Could you please identify?
My name is Walt Schufert. I'm a community member. I've been in South Kitsap a long time. We put one child through South Kitsap High School quite a few years ago. This is kind of a repeat of last time that I spoke to you for people that haven't heard, but last council meeting I think Mr. Bond talked about the perspective, or was Mr. Dorsey, about the prospective growth in the city in the next year and so, and the same thing in the community in the regular county. So it's very apparent that growth will occur and we need more classrooms to support that. Over a year ago, a committee was formed to really evaluate all the facilities in South Kitsap. The committee was comprised of a professional in school construction. It was comprised of professionals from the district, professionals from their school systems, and a few community members, and I was one of the community members. And we spent over a year evaluating all the facilities in South Kitsap, and we ended with a recommendation to the school board of what should happen. And really the need for growth in classroom really occurs first at the primary and secondary level, but the committee and the school board in endorsing that recognized that we had a 3-year high school. The better model for education is a 4-year high school, so shifting to a 4-year high school and a new high school then frees up classroom space to entertain the primary and secondary growth. So that's kind of the background of how we got to a new high school. I guess just in summing up, I listened to Mr. Ryan speak. I heard him say we need a new high school. I heard him say that he didn't like the funding profile of our high schools, but I would ask Mr. Ryan, I will bet you if he had a member of his family that had a life-threatening medical issue, he wouldn't withhold medical care because he didn't like the way our medical system is funded. So I beg you to endorse this. I also beg you to do more than endorse it, but use your active support to go out and encourage others you know and really help us to get this bond passed this time. Thank you.
My name is Colin McGee, and I'm a sophomore at South Kitsap High School. South Kitsap High School, it's a great high school. I'm thriving in it, and as of now, it's great, but it still needs improvement. I do realize that this bond will not directly impact me, but it will impact other kids, such as my brother, Dash. And he is in 4th grade. When the first bond did not pass, he asked, why? Why did the bond not pass? He didn't understand, and this is sad because he isn't able to vote for something that directly impacts him and hundreds of other kids. He's special, and he is smart in many ways I am not, and I learn completely different from the way he learns. A new high school will give more opportunities for more classes and other such things to give him help to strive in not strive to excel in school and life, just in general. This will increase business, jobs, pretty much everything, our way of life, and greatly improve our community, and I hope you endorse this bond again. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi there. My name is Greg Gillan. I'm new to Port Orchard. I live in the McCormick Meadows community, and I have 2 young little kids that will benefit greatly from this new high school. I feel this is a great need for the community, and I ask for your support. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm April Doran, and I'm new to Port Orchard. We just moved over from South King County and have been thoroughly just awestruck by the beauty of this community and very excited to get to be more part of it. My older son had the opportunity to go to Raisbeck Aviation High School in South King County, and it's an amazing high school. I believe the year he graduated, the 99 students that graduated, which was almost, 100% of the graduating class, they roughly had, it's a STEM school, $3 million in scholarships for those students. And so I know firsthand the opportunities that are given to students that are graduating from STEM-based high schools. Sorry, I'm very nervous. And I would love my twin second graders, they go to South Colby, and I would love them to have an opportunity to get as amazing a high school education as their older brother has gotten. And I've seen those students just, thrive and travel the world and get the most amazing college degrees, and because they're about 4 years out now. So, and so I do hope that Port Orchard realizes that not only is it just a high school that they're building, and it costs a lot of money, and it's really hard to part with that money, but it is it's a serious investment in the future of this community. Families like mine that are coming here to partake in this beautiful region, it will pay back dividends, and I hope that the people of Port Orchard pass this and that you guys endorse it, and that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to testify in this public hearing? Seeing none? Oh, Mr.
Well, I think your rule on that sheet I signed said you could only talk once. Can I just say one?
You'd only get one bite out of the apple tonight. So, others wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Council, what's your pleasure? Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, our superintendent mentioned some things about the growth in our area. And what she was referencing is some information that was presented by the Puget Sound Regional Council. And it documented the growth that's been occurring in the Puget Sound region. When they looked at the percentages of cities growing, that there was only one city in Kitsap County that got into the top 10, and it was actually number 6 in the percentage of growth, and it's the fastest growing was Port Orchard. It grew, and I'm looking at the numbers here, 12.6%, and that's after excluding the annexation issues. So that was pure growth, which was pretty telling to me when I seen those stats. And then, as she mentioned, the population growth in the Puget Sound region grew in between 2014 and 2015 at the 7 people per hour, which was pretty shocking. And in the Puget Sound region, the growth in the last, since 2010, is the equivalent of another city of Tacoma. So growth is coming. Growth is here. Growth is certainly here in Port Orchard. And we need to make sure that we accommodate for that growth in a variety of aspects. And we've talked here in the past about our infrastructure needs. We need to accommodate with increasing our water supply for our with wells. We need to increase our abilities to treat wastewater at our treatment plant. We need to improve our roads to deal with the growth. Well, we also need to improve our schools. And personally, this is, I think, one way that we can help deal with growth in all those infrastructure areas. And a number of times I've been asked, well, why should the city council take a position on this? We shouldn't be telling people how to vote. I don't think by taking a position on this that we're telling anybody how to vote. We're taking a position to tell them how important something is to the city of Port Orchard. And I think this is something that we really need to do. So I'm certainly supportive of it.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the resolution supporting South Kitsap School District Number 402, general obligation bonds, ballot measures scheduled for voter action on April 26, 2016.
Second.
Motion and a second. Other discussions or statements?
Well, a few years ago, not that many years ago when I was younger, what's all the laughter about? Somebody approved a school bond for my high school. And I'm sure that there's nobody in this room who hasn't had that experience. Somebody approved the bond for everybody who's made it through high school in this city. And we have an onslaught of growth that's going to come down on us like thunderation. And by gosh, we better be ready for it. And that's some of the reasons. The other reasons is we have to give our kids a good quality education. And they can't do it in a high school that has a population greater than half the cities in the state. For the first time the other day, I drove through the back and I saw exactly how big that high school was. Oh my gosh, it's like a city. You can't give the instructions to students in an intimate way when you have that megalith. They need a new school. And I think everyone realizes that when a new business or a new citizen is thinking about coming to this town, the first talking point is, how's your schools? I'd like to hear that talking point be, did you hear? We just passed a school levy. I think you do too.
Others wish to comment? Mr. Diener?
Yeah, so I think it was my first council meeting when I got to speak on this before, and I said that we had a moral imperative, and I don't believe that's changed at all. And we've heard some pretty interesting facts and figures, but one that we didn't hear again tonight was that the school district currently has 85 portables in use. And that's just a phenomenal number. That's just amazing when you think about it. And I've made some other notes. You know, others did pay for our schools. Well done with that. Others have paid for our schools. Our parents, they paid for schools. So that's just how the system works. I think that there are people who are worried about tax increases, but I think that they should understand that those worries should be offset by the increased value that they'll get due to the proximate school. We're going to see increased growth. We've mentioned that a couple times, not just in Port Orchard, but in South Kitsap. I think the county is seeing a record number of building permits for single-family residential units in this area. So that's coming. And as you move north to south, this is one of the more affordable areas. And if you move from here towards Pierce County, it gets to become more expensive. So it is coming. And we've heard it from staff as well. And I think it's also important to note that the school will capitalize on OC. And OC, Olympic College, is a nationally recognized college. And I think we need to keep that momentum going as well. So for those reasons, I plan on supporting this.
Thank you. Others wish to comment? Artie?
Yeah, just echoing on some of the similar comments. It's amazing to see how long this community has not been able to reinvest in these public assets. I've got kids that are one's in high school, one's in junior high, so they won't, directly necessarily benefit from this new high school. But with their activities, we travel around and we go to the different school districts where they have reinvested. We just were at a big wrestling tournament last weekend in North Mason's new high school, and to see the ongoing construction of what they're doing to, make repair to their junior high, and what a sense of pride in the community. And I totally agree with what Mr. Wall had to say about, this is more than just a school. This is, I think, we're on the tipping point of of something where I think that pride will expand infinitely. What this represents, I think, is huge. And if you really look into the numbers with that last election, I mean, you talk about public process. We heard this through, public comment today. I love these public hearings. It really gives you an opportunity to invite a ton of people up and to really drill down into a particular issue. As far as public process, we just lived a ballot measure. I don't know that you can probably have a better sampling of what our community feels than actually taking it to a ballot initiative. And if you look at that 60-40 split, what that says is there's 50% more people in the South Kitsap School District that was supportive of this initiative than those that were not. 50% more. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's the sentiment of our community. I'm not so sure that's a great reflection of our democracy, where less than 50% could determine the outcome of our future and our children's future. But it is. Those are the laws we have to play by right now. But I know it's that close, and I really believe that we're on the verge of something special. And I think we're going to grab those 38 votes and probably another 380 votes beyond that. And I know it's exciting to be able to be on the supportive side of that, and I would hope that my fellow council members would feel the same way we did a month ago. So thank you all for coming out tonight and doing your part to support our community via the school district.
Ms. Ashby.
Well, yes, I just wanted, again, to compliment and thank the citizens that came out to speak about the school bond issue. I know that we asked you to come a month ago, and then we have to go through the process again in order to give our endorsement. What I particularly noticed was what, for lack of a better word, I'll call the presentation, the professionalism of the presentation that we received last meeting and this meeting. The attitude, the positive attitude of the speakers was heartfelt. The information you provided us, the education you provided us was very worthy. It was valuable to us. And I compliment you all for the job you've done in the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chang?
I was actually looking for some figures because I certainly echo what Greg Wall said, that this is a turning point for the city. And what I was thinking was the last time the bond was attempted, it was a much lower figure. I think it was like 52 or 54%. So I feel that we're so close. If you ask me in general, I would say we passed it. It's very close. And it's certainly come a long way from the previous bond. I know that one was, I think, probably when I first moved to town almost 20 years ago. I'm still a newcomer, by the way. That was not even close, so that was very disheartening. This is very encouraging, and I'm sure that it's going to be a breeze to just sail over 60%.
Either one of you wish to comment? Are we ready to vote? No? Let's look around.
I just wanted to compliment the young man on stepping forward and having the courage to say something. There were children last time also that commented, and it's very heartening. It's something I've been supporting is the new school, and I love seeing the kids participating in this effort. So thank you for allowing the kids to come.
Ready to take action?
Let's go.
Okay. We'll be voting on a resolution supporting South Kitsap School District's general obligation bond measure scheduled for voter action on April 26, 2016. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, congratulations. Okay, we're going to move on to our general business items.
And feel free not to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Take a moment or two break here if we...
Mass exodus.
Break of 45
Yeah.
No.
Well,
And I don't think I would have.
What's that?
Supported not having a better set of minutes.
All righty.
I hope so. You didn't know the retreat was not going to be recorded. Were you aware of that?
I would say that it didn't enter my mind.
I mean, I didn't
think about it.
I assumed it was going to be recorded.
Yeah, I didn't think about it.
Step back.
Right, it's
It
working.
may have been because of the facility.
you only allowed so much time because it's public one. It's the paid
No,
one.
but I mean,
Yeah.
the little thing that we use would not have worked in that
Right.
setting.
Right. It was, I didn't even think about it.
Whatever, I'll keep toggling back and forth.
Yeah, I want to find
Part of our problem is we need
I just
a new
need
system.
There's also separate.
All right,
rules
we
on
ready
things
to
like that.
continue our meeting?
That's correct.
All right, we are on to item 7A, adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code 2.04, council meetings. And Clerk Reinerson.
So at the February 20th, 2016 council retreat, discussions were held to determine if the council wanted a policy on the type of minutes taken for regular council meetings and whether the council should continue to sponsor an ordinance. Staff placed this item on the March 15th council study session for further discussion. At that meeting, staff provided a redlined version reflecting the suggestions heard at the council retreat. In addition, staff included recommended changes to the code to reflect current practices. The redlined version of Port Orchard Municipal Code Chapter 2.04, reflecting council suggestions at the March 15, 2015 council study session, actually it should be March 15, 2016's council study session, has been provided for consideration. Staff recommends approve the changes as presented.
I move to adopt an ordinance amending the Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 2.04, council meetings as presented.
I second that motion.
Second, is there any discussion of this matter?
As the maker of the motion, most of the items that in the red line are simply housekeeping issues. The one issue that may not be is the change of minutes, the type of minutes. And I needed to see those, and so the city clerk provided me a sample of what those would look like. And I would just say that when I saw the sample, and we do have the recording, I'm comfortable with making that change.
Other comments? Seeing, yes, Mr. Dean.
Well, in 2.04.100, one of the changes is ordinances shall have a sponsoring council member, and nowhere else is that spoken to. And I'm just was wondering if it would be worthwhile understanding or clarifying what that means or how that comes to be.
Well, it's a practice that we've done for as long as I've been on the council. But it was never captured in an ordinance.
Right.
And so when I came into office, Clerk Reinerson and I were questioning it because we couldn't find anything where it said we should. And so that was one of the topics at our retreat, whether we should continue that practice or not continue the practice, because we don't have anything, in our, city rules and regulations that says we should be doing that.
Sure.
And so the direction that we got from the retreat was that we wanted to have it sponsored. So we felt that it was important to capture that in future years. So 10 or 20 years from now, we're not going, why do we do this?
And I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I recently signed I believe it was a resolution where I was a sponsor, but I didn't know I was a sponsor. So I think
it's common practice.
Yeah. And so maybe what I'm trying to understand is how does one become a sponsor, and should that be codified?
I have a little jar in my office.
That explains it.
No, that's not true.
What I
Yes.
the explanation I would offer you, what was said at the retreat is typically the sponsor is the chair of the committee that processed or that evaluated the resolution or ordinance that was coming forward.
And is it worthwhile codifying that, or do we just want to call that a policy that we're running by?
Well, historically, and I think that's what we talked about, was that it was the chair, but that's not an absolute.
It's not an
in case,
absolute, yeah.
In case the chair isn't available or something like that, the staff can call someone to ask for a sponsor.
Okay. Or possibly the chair isn't in favor, and so they may not want to be the sponsor of an action.
Okay. Well, I'm comfortable with it as it's written as well.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Let me get back to the beginning of this. So we will be voting to approve and to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 2.04, council meetings as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, carries. And we are on to 7B, which is adoption of a resolution ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 589 representing the municipal court employees. Ms. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. The city's negotiating team, consisting of City Attorney Sharon Cates, Mayor Robert Patansu, City Treasurer Alan Martin, Court Administrator Debbie Hunt, and HR Coordinator Deborah Howard, has reached a tentative agreement with Teamster Local number 589 representing the city's municipal court employees. The agreement has been ratified by the Municipal Court Employees Bargaining Unit. The agreement is not a public document until approved by the council and signed by the parties, and is therefore not attached to this staff report. The recommendation, the city's negotiating team recommends that the city council ratify the collective bargaining agreement and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Mayor, I move to ratify the terms of the collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters Local 589 representing the municipal employees bargaining unit and authorize the mayor to execute the same.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will be voting to approve the adoption of a resolution ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters Local 589 representing the municipal court employees. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We are on to item 7C, adoption of a resolution ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 589 representing the police support staff. Ms. Howard.
The city's negotiating team for this police support staff consisted of the city attorney Sharon Cates, Mayor Robert Patansu, City Treasurer Alan Martin, Chief Police Jeffrey Martai, and HR Coordinator Deborah Howard, has reached a tentative agreement with Teamsters Local 589 representing the city's police support staff employees. The agreement has been ratified by the Police Support Staff Employees Bargaining Unit. The agreement is not a public document until approved by the council and signed by the parties, and is therefore not attached to this staff report. The city's negotiating team recommends that the city council ratify the collective bargaining agreement and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Motion. Mr. Clausen.
Mayor, I move to ratify the terms of the collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters Local 589 representing the police support staff employees bargaining unit and authorize the mayor to execute the same.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll be voting to approve the adoption of a resolution ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters Local 589 representing the police support staff employees. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We are on to item 7D, adoption of a resolution ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 589 representing public works employees.
The city's negotiating team, again, consisted of City Attorney Sharon Cates, Mayor Robert Patansu, City Treasurer Alan Martin, Director of Public Works and Engineering Mark Dorsey, and HR Coordinator Deborah Howard, has reached a tentative agreement with Teamster Local 589 representing the city's Public Works employees. The agreement has been ratified by the Public Works Employees Bargaining Unit. The agreement is not a public document until approved by the council and signed by the parties, and is therefore not attached to this staff report. The city's negotiating team recommends that the city council ratify the collective bargaining agreement and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Mr. Clausen.
Mayor, I move to ratify the terms of the collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters Local 589 representing the Public Works Employees Bargaining Unit and authorize the mayor to execute the same.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We'll be voting to approve a resolution ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 589, representing the Public Works employees. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We have removed item 7E from tonight's agenda, so we are on to item 7F, adopting a resolution repealing resolution number 032-06 and reestablishing rules governing citizens' comments during a regular city council meeting. Clerk Reinerson.
This item on the March 15, 2016 council study session for discussion. At that meeting, staff provided a copy of a resolution that was currently in effect. Staff was directed to update the resolution to reflect the following. Continue to have 2 citizen comment portions at the meeting. Limit the first citizen comment portion to agenda items only. Have the second citizen comment portion be open to any topic. Place a maximum time of 30 minutes for both citizen comment portions, and to remove the wording cablecast and replace with recorded. A red line version of that resolution and exhibit have been provided for your consideration.
Make a motion. Ms. Ashby?
I will make a motion. I move to adopt a resolution repealing resolution number 032-06 and reestablishing rules governing citizen comments during the regular city council meetings as presented.
A motion.
Second.
A second by Mr. Clausen. Discussion.
As the maker of the motion, I think I have a few things to say, but one of my first concerns is just logistically, in that if we, the way our order of business is, we have the call to order and then we have citizens' comments. And what the proposal is to have those citizens' comments limited to agenda items. The next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. So if we may add items to the agenda at that point, and we may remove items from the agenda at that point. So logistically, I was just wondering how we could make sure the citizens had the opportunity to speak on an item that we may add to the agenda. It's just a logistic point there.
So it
Or
could
not
be a
need
good
to speak if something's taken off.
Could be a good. Could we approve then our agenda prior to citizen comments? Might be a good practice because we could potentially. It doesn't happen often, but at times we do amend the agenda or add items to the agenda.
Right. Again, that was logistically a thing I had. What we heard tonight during our citizen comments were people afraid we were removing something from the citizens, when in fact I do not believe that is the case. We're simply putting it in a different order in the agenda. There has also been concerns about limiting the time allowance to 30 minutes, and I just suspect that people don't realize there has been a 30-minute time limit since 2006. This is not anything new that we're introducing. That was already there. The other thing that as I've thought about this, and I'm going to need the attention of Clerk Reinerson on this, and I also, for the audience and for anyone who's listening to this, when citizens have something to say, it's important that we hear what they want to say about anything that's on our agenda, and we need that information prior to our business meeting, because we need to know what their input is on those items. And then the city council needs to do the work of the city. We need to get our city business done. And then at the end of the meeting, we're open to hear any new ideas or any other thoughts that citizens may have to us. So the flow of it seems to me to be efficient. However, it's also been my experience as a council person that people will come to the podium and they will speak to us, and we as a group are not allowed to speak back. We're just, okay, we heard you, and we go on. Where I have had, over the 2.5 years that I've been a council member, I've had several citizens call me and say, Beck, this is an issue. And I've said, okay, let's talk about it. We've talked about it. I have got them in touch with Mr. Dorsey. I have got them in touch with whoever they need to at this city to solve their issue. And none of that ever makes it to an agenda. That's where the citizens get the biggest benefit, I think, from the council members. So when I thought about how the process works, basically, to get something on the agenda, that's going to flow through a council committee and then probably to a work study and then make it, so how can we provide the citizens an understanding of how that process works? And I was thinking, maybe a frequently asked questions button on the website, or if you have a question regarding A, B, or C, if it's under A, you may want to contact Public Works Department. If it's under B, Community Development, but have, just have an opportunity on our website. This is the most efficient and effective way if you're dealing with the city to have your issue brought forward. So those were just some of my thoughts.
Other comments? Mr. Kucharty?
Yeah, I'm trying to reflect back and really focus on the discussion we had at our training session. And this conversation was certainly not intended whatsoever to stifle our public's ability to get up and communicate with us. It's far contrary from that, to the point where it's not about just what we can provide the night of. The process that we often go through for any of these business items can be weeks, months, years. And I think what I've learned, I know in the last few months, is to provide more opportunities along the way, that entire process, whether it be at committee meetings or at work study sessions, to engage, because we just don't have enough. And so the conversation around this particular thing was let's keep the citizens' comments at the front end germane to our agenda, where we're hyper-focused on the business that we need to get done. It's germane to that. Just as we're really what occurred tonight, 100% of our citizen comments tonight were germane to our agenda.
That's correct.
And very applicable, which is leading us to have this discussion right now on this particular issue, because it probably was the item that was spoken to most often tonight. And I really think that was why we had this conversation, is how can we keep things germane and not get things out of order. It certainly is not intended to stifle public comment whatsoever. That was not the conversation that this council shared. And we need to continue to seek ways to reach out to our constituents more often, more ways, more vehicles to solicit their feedback. And I know that's sometimes easier said than done, but it's not lip service, and it's exactly what I know we intend to do. We've had these discussions. So,
Other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Clausen.
I'm just sitting here pondering back your comments, and I think you raised a very good point about us changing the agenda after the citizens have had an opportunity to talk on that. And that is troubling. That concerns me, and I'm not sure if we have to go back to the previous ordinance that lays out the agenda and amend that. But I really do think that we need to make sure that we deal with the approval of the agenda before citizens' comments, because that really could be an issue.
Housekeeping issue there, Clerk
Motion
Reinerson.
for,
How would you propose?
Have a motion on the floor?
We do.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I believe that's ripe for a motion for reconsideration.
But we have a motion on the floor that we have to deal
No,
with
I
first.
think the issue you're talking about, amending
Yeah.
the earlier item.
I think once we adopt this, and we can go back and
Back to the
reconsider
other.
the previous ordinance and then amend it and then re-adopt it.
You guys must have taken some training on Robert's rules here recently.
Someone did ask us to go through that.
And you can also, after this motion has been resolved, because you can't amend the motion because it's not relating to the main motion, but once this item has been resolved at any time during the council meeting, as long as a previous motion has been made, to make a motion. So you can say, I want to make a motion to amend Port Orchard Municipal Code, blah, 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 to rearrange the order, and that will take precedence. And I can get that all amended in one swoop. And then I wanted to point out also that in that same 2.04 council meeting minutes that just because this is a resolution, it's a feel-good piece, meaning that you have to put some order to how you're going to conduct business. So this is just a advisory recommendation, because in your Port Orchard Code, it states that no person, not a council member, shall be allowed to address the same while in session without permission of the presiding officer. So typically, if somebody wants to speak to the council, they ask the mayor defers to the council, and then at that discretion, you guys can decide whether you want to continue that or not. And then also in the same Port Orchard Municipal Code, it states that the rules of the council may be altered, amended, or temporarily suspended by a vote of the 2/3 members of the that are present. So again, you guys can amend the rules for whatever. For that one, you have to have 2/3. But again, if you wanted to allow a citizen's comment to talk about a particular topic, you can suspend that rules for that particular time and move forward.
And this, I realize this is conversational, but we can do that on a temporary basis?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think Mr. Diener was next.
So I think Becky raised a very good point about reordering the agenda to reflect items that may or may not come onto the agenda or may come off the agenda. And I think a little bit about how I feel about the matter was shaped by what I heard tonight, and I'd like to hear from the council members if there's any harm in considering the second 15 minutes that we usually normally allot to the end of the agenda to occur earlier in the agenda at the front, maybe after the first 15 minutes. We're going to sit through the agenda anyway. We're going to hear it at the end of the agenda. We heard that people don't like having to stay through an agenda to give some comments that may not be germane to agenda items. And I'm wondering if that's worthwhile having a discussion about now.
Again, this is a little conversational, but the reason that the second, there used to only be, in the beginning, there was just the first citizen comments.
Mm-hmm.
That was all. There was nothing at the end of the meeting. And then it became apparent that it would be nice to have a second opportunity so that not just so that anyone attending the meeting had any comments about what happened during the meeting had an opportunity to address the council immediately with their thoughts while it was still fresh in their mind and they were here. So that's where the second citizen comment came into play.
Okay. I see.
Okay. Yeah.
You got a comment?
My turn, yes. According to our summary, there are 5 bullet points that are being suggested. And I'm thinking I would actually recommend skipping over 2 of them. And I'll tell you why. The 2 that I believe we should not adopt, the first one is limiting the topic of the first citizen comment portion. I understand our reasoning to get there that it would have made a more efficient meeting. However, it did not take into consideration the practicalities of audience members who may not be able to wait till the end of the meeting. I don't think we intended to stifle them or make them endure the long meeting just to be able to say their piece. We just wanted to encourage them. So maybe we could change the language to say that we encourage people to talk about agenda items in the first one, but they could talk about other items. Also, when we spoke about the maximum time, I don't believe we intended to stifle people or just say that, 30 minutes, you got to go home, we're done. But I think we wanted to remind people that it was a more efficient business meeting, and we were trying to figure out if it's a 3-hour meeting, maybe we'll allocate 30 minutes. I don't think the 30 minutes was intended to be so prescriptive. I think it was just a guide. So I would actually recommend maybe, I don't know, can we put it in gray type or just say we have a suggested or an ideal audience? We'd like them to speak for 15 minutes only, but we probably wouldn't stop them. Or what has often happened is the mayor has deferred to council and say, do you want Mr. X to be able to speak for an additional minute or two? And then the council has said on a case-by-case basis, maybe or yes. So in summary, I would say maybe we modify those 2 points because I don't believe, as Sean has said, that it was intended to stop the comments on this meeting.
So are you making a motion, Mr. Chang, or are you making comment?
I guess I'd be making an amendment. The amendment would be to not limit the first citizen comments and not place a maximum time of 30 minutes.
Could we look at splitting the motion? That's it.
Fred, what I heard you say first off, which I kind of liked, is to set the standard as a recommendation.
Okay.
Leave it there as to recommend that citizen comments and maybe recommend a 30-minute time. But it does not, just as Brandy discussed, we can always go through and modify these things. This isn't a hard, fast rule. And if there's a particular item on our business agenda where we have 200 people here, I don't believe it's the intent of anybody else to say, 30 minutes, too bad, go home. That's certainly not it at all. And so we'd have to take, and consider that as well. But I do like the fact that it's setting a standard, that we're attempting to keep things, germane in that first part, but we don't necessarily have to have it be so prescriptively stifling as you so eloquently stated.
So could you restate that motion, Mr. Chang? You've had some massaging, I think, by some other council members.
No, those are good suggestions. So the amendment would be to change the language in the, is it the rules or is the resolution where we recommend that the first comment portion be related to the agenda. Instead of a shall, it would be a what should be. I don't know what language you want to use. Or we could just say recommend. Also, when we say in number 1, the audience, the citizen comment portion will be limited, we could say...
you're going to break it in 2.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thanks. Okay.
So we're dealing with one amendment here, and it's to recommend that the limit, it's recommending that the first citizen comment period be only for items on the agenda? Is that what your motion is?
Yeah. Yes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion of the amendment. Mr. Clausen.
I'm not sure how you're going to enforce that.
Mm-hmm. There's no.
And I think that puts you in a very awkward position, Mr. Mayor, to do that, because then it appears to be somewhat arbitrary. I don't like what I'm hearing, so I'm really encouraging you to go back to an agenda item. I think it's easier to, if somebody wants to speak out of turn on something else, we deal with that on a case-by-case exception basis. And they, just like asking for input on a motion, we generally don't invite public into that discussion, but we have allowed that as, an exception. But I just don't see how you're ever going to, you're just back to where we are today. And if you want to try to focus it on the business meeting.
I think I would concur. You would be putting me in an awkward place, and I would prefer that we do it on a case-by-case basis, if I heard you correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Other comments on the amendment? It is your meeting, so I'm going to conduct it however you wish, but... Other comments? So we are voting on an amendment to limit the comments, recommending that the comments in the first citizen comment period be only items on the agenda. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
I'll say aye.
We have one aye. And those in favor, or not wishing that, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. So the amendment fails. Was there a second amendment that I heard we were going to break that into two pieces?
Well, Mr. Mayor, if we talked about being able to suspend these on a case-by-case basis, then maybe we should state that in here as well. And maybe I missed it, and it is stated in here.
Is it stated?
It's stated in the Port Orchard Municipal Code 2.04, which is the one that we amended earlier.
Prior.
But
Okay. The
it's still
prior.
existing, right.
I'm going
to go back to that item and confirm. The Wi-Fi cooperates.
2.04.080, addressing council by non-member.
I'm sorry, the code reference one more time?
2.04080.
080.
Page 3 and 4.
I still can't.
2.04.
One more time.
080. 080. I can't see it.
Okay.
That doesn't limit the topic, though. That does limit who can speak to the council without permission, or that they require the permission of the presiding officer. It does not, however, limit what they're talking about.
Correct.
And one reason I voted against my own amendment is I don't think we even need to change to limit the first questions. I mean, yes, we can suggest it, but I don't see why we'd even bother limiting it.
We typically let our meetings run till 10 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock we have to choose to extend the meeting or not. I can't recall ever stopping citizens' comment on any issue. I mean, that's always, the 30 minutes has always been in there, but I don't know that we've ever enforced it. And I don't recall ever having 30 minutes. Do you guys? John, you've been around a lot longer than I have.
I don't ever remember enforcing it either.
So I think the 10 o'clock time frame is addressed in a different portion of our code. And I know that's been enforced in the past. So are we back to this main motion then?
What is the main motion? Oh, as is.
Let me find it here again on, it's item F. And so, motion at hand is adopting a resolution, repealing resolution number 032-016 and reestablishing rules governing citizen comment during regular city council meetings as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. One in opposition. We are on to item 7G, adopting a resolution repealing resolution number 031-07 and adopting the 2016 Washington Department of Transportation's policies regarding right-of-way acquisition procedures. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. On November 26, 2007, the Port Orchard City Council adopted Resolution 031-07, thereby creating right-of-way acquisition procedures, including appraisal review, acquisition, relocation, and property management. In accordance with the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act, 49 CFR Part 24, Chapter 8.26 RCW, Chapter 468-100 WAC, and WashDOT Local Agency Guidelines Manual, Chapter M26-01, the City of Port Orchard is required to update the 2007 right-of-way acquisition procedures. The 2016 updates include updated WashDOT format and update to current Public Works Directive. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution thereby updating the required right-of-way acquisition procedures and repealing in its entirety Resolution 031-2007.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution thereby updating the required right-of-way acquisition procedures and repealing in its entirety Resolution Number 031-2007.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion of this item? Mr. Chang?
I just need to make the remark that I am a DOT employee. However, I am not affected by this policy. However, if anyone wishes, I would be happy to recuse myself from the vote.
Wishing to Mr. Chang to recuse himself? Seeing no one, you get to vote with us. So we are voting on a resolution thereby updating the right-of-way acquisition procedures and repealing in its entire resolution number 031-2007. All in favor, say aye.
I have.
Aye. Oh. More questions? Okay.
It's just a housekeeping thing.
Okay.
It's on Exhibit B.
Hold on for a moment. Exhibit B.
All the way to the bottom, Mark. Under 3B, it says the city administrator can authorize yada yada. Do we need to change that term because we don't have a city administrator? Does it need to say mayor? Or does it need to say city treasurer? Or is it okay that it says city administrator? Exhibit B, all the way at the end.
3B.
Well, what if it said a city administrator instead of the city administrator?
Well, then
That's not the intent.
anybody could do that. It's just a question. It's just, I'm sorry, I read these things.
The city administrator can authorize.
Carefully.
Works already.
Scrivener's error.
Scrivener's
Yeah.
error.
Later.
Okay.
Love that.
So how are we going to change that to read what? To the mayor? Okay. All right. Should we try that vote again? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We are on to item 7H, approval of a resolution repealing resolutions number 1797 and 001-10 and reestablishing a policy for permitting the display of banners over Highway 166 at Bay Street. Mr. Bond.
Yes, thank you. Effective March 2nd, 2016, the South Kitsap Fire District transferred its responsibilities concerning the Bay Street hanging banner to the city. The City Council has requested that this program continue while a new sign code is being developed. As such, the city's land use attorney prepared the attached resolution to update the city's policies related to the Bay Street hanging banner. This resolution will allow city staff to hang banners in accordance with the 2016 reservations that have already been made, as well as to allow the Bay Street hanging banner applications to be submitted and processed by the city moving forward. We heard a couple of comments tonight earlier in the meeting, and I just wanted to address those. In the resolution, Section E, there's no reason why we can't increase the number 2 to allow somebody to put up their banner more than 2 times a year. Likewise, the permitting fee, in talking to the attorney, that was attached to the resolution, and I'm not sure what went into that, but that's just the estimated time and cost for the city to hang these things. But my understanding is that you could set that at a fixed amount or a lower amount, and so you could insert something to the resolution there. And
To speak to that, I mean, I know that there was some work went into figuring out exactly the cost of hanging the banner each time, and it's appropriate to have the entity that wants the banner hung to pay for part of that. But there's also reasons that the city might want to supplement that with in terms of like promoting tourism, and there are benefits to the city to have these banners hung as well. So the amount of the permitting fee is something that you can change to the extent you want to.
And just speaking to the number of times, when the application day comes, people line up, because certain times are highly coveted. Maybe we want to limit this to, you can only sign up for 2 periods, at the beginning or something of that nature. So we don't have the first person on line getting 4 weeks in the summer or something of that nature. So maybe we need to limit at the first go-round, but after everybody's had an opportunity to sign up for a period, the open dates, you could get, additional dates. Just a thought.
Having never experienced the sign-up process, could that be done that no one could get more than 2 in a 24-hour period so that you have to come back the next day or something? I don't know how would you do that? Nobody else is in line?
Brandy?
Yes, that would be sufficient. And then just to remind the council too that code or that language is still existing. I mean, that's how it's always been. We just incorporated it into our code. So the members of the public that sign up for this already know that and are used to that. So it's not like we're changing or limiting them to what they weren't used to. So, but yeah, changing it to 24 hours. Yeah, absolutely. That'll help.
I think it's a good point, both of what we heard earlier in regards to it. If there's a time when there's no banner and one of the organizations want it, fine.
Mr. Mayor?
But I do understand what you're saying about all of them getting consumed by the first person.
Yeah, I would move to approve the resolution concerning the Bay Street hanging banners as presented.
There's a motion?
Second motion.
Second by Mr. Diener.
And as the maker of the motion, I would like to speak to the resolution. And I will say that most of this is legacy language. Having stood in that line, I understand it is most of it is legacy language. There are some issues that I have with it, and I have talked to a couple of the organizations that use it regularly, and they were not necessarily troubled by the limitation of 2, but I know that they would appreciate an opportunity to use it more than that. So if we can come up with a solution there, I would be supportive of that. I would like to, under number H, I would like to make an amendment to my original motion, and I would like number H to read, I move that we change number H to read, the Community Development Director may recommend additional policies and procedures to the City Council as necessary to administer the permitting of the Bay Street banners pursuant to the above minimum provisions. I'm not sure as a body that we want to abdicate our policymaking ability to the community, to a staff person.
Is there a second for that motion before you speak to it?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is the motion maker, would you like to speak?
I just want to say that I just don't think it's appropriate for us to give up our policy making. But as we get into this and we start dealing with putting the banner up, I very much respect that there may be issues within the Community Development Department or the Public Works Department that we need to address. So I would like to leave that open, but I think that any changes to the policy should come through the council.
Are you going to deal with B?
Yes, I am.
But you modified, I thought, H.
H, I did.
And
I was
if you
going to
go
do
the
them.
next-
I was going to do. I've got 3. I can do them all at once, or I can do them
Okay, if you're
independently.
We should deal with them one at a time.
I
Mr. Bond has a comment here.
I think that, I certainly don't necessarily want the ability to implement these policies, but given that this is a resolution and this is not a code amendment, if you don't want to give me the authority to do anything but bring this back, that's implied. I don't think you would even need H at all. I would recommend striking it entirely if you're going to consider approving the amendment that was written. I think striking it would be a better option because a resolution would have to come forward anyway if I'm just bringing a policy to you for consideration.
So would you prefer to vote your motion down?
Yeah, we can do that. And because we're here, if we look at B, we're doing the same thing. The Community Development Director shall establish additional policies regarding the required materials, construction, and installation. The I know that there are certain hardware that has to be on there. I know that the banners of a certain side have to have openings for the air to go through. It's like we need specifications of what these banners need to be like. And then we get down to that section, and it says that the community development director shall be responsible for the implementation of this policy. But then appeals may be made to the city council pursuant to any additional procedures required by the community development director.
If I recall, the application has specifications for that banner.
It does.
And I'm not sure why that didn't get captured.
Previous, the fire district had specifications. We haven't officially adopted those yet, but we should
Well, and if you remove the authority for the directors to implement that, then we're going to have to take this back to council so that council can adopt those standards.
Mhm.
Mr. Diener, do you have
I think we were going to adopt internal policies that state that when somebody, or administrative policies, that when somebody drops off the banner, we would say, hey, you need to drop off your banner within so many days. You need to pick up your banner within so many days. You need to pay the fee to the finance department, not through Public Works. And then another one would be an internal process would be that they have to have this type of hardware attached to it. But if the resolution by the council wants to be specific in those manners, then we can amend it as well.
Mr. Diener, do you have a
Well, I
comment?
believe we still have a motion on the table.
We have an amendment, actually. Yes. Do you wish to speak to that amendment?
No, I do not at this time.
Ms. Ashby, were you had other comments?
Yeah, my concern was policy. When I see the word policy and we're, the procedures to me is there's going to be procedures that have to be done, and I don't know that council needs to be involved with that, but policy was important to me. So we're on H, so we can.
So on H, so it sounds, what I'm hearing is, if we're going to change the policy related to this, the council wants to be involved. If we're adopting the procedures, which is when you're going to drop your banner off, when you're going to pick it up, how you're going to construct the banner, I don't know that you guys necessarily want to know how many holes are punched in the banner.
Right.
But Public Works is very concerned about it because we want the banner to make sure that it doesn't come down in a storm.
Correct.
So I'm not sure that your amendment addresses what the
I
true
really want
concern
to have
is.
happen. Correct.
So should we vote on this amendment and potentially bring a new amendment forward?
Because we don't have.
So,
How about just a new motion with what you want?
do you want to withdraw your motion?
I can withdraw that motion.
Okay. You okay with that, Clerk Reinerson? She's going to withdraw her motion?
My amendment.
Her amendment, excuse me.
Yeah, I got it noted, yes.
Okay. Mr. Diener?
So while Beck is regrouping, I have concerns about G, where the city may collect a fee, and I don't believe that the city should be giving this service away, and so I would make a motion that would read, the city shall collect a permitting fee for each permit to cover all or a portion of administration and installation costs. So that requires a fee, but what that fee actually would be is not decided here.
I'll second that.
And so as the maker of the motion, I don't believe it's a service we should give away. I believe we should attempt to recoup as much as we can of that, of the costs that we see here, the estimates to hang a banner. I think there was some thought that there might be nonprofits that might wish to get a break, and I guess that's up to us to decide what that looks like. But I think this is, this would cover either scenario.
I think I would be more comfortable with this body establishing that fee versus it being something arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, we're charging $100 for the hanging of that banner, and Public Works says it's $269. Having been a person who hangs a banner before, I question whether it's going to take as much time as there, but that's their estimate.
I can speak to that, I think. So this is an extremely conservative estimate because if you're talking about, to me, it's two components. One is if you're truly capturing the time port to port, you're talking about when they go out into the yard and they've started that diesel truck and they go from the shop down here, stop by here, pick it up, set up traffic control, change out the banners, bring it up, and then go back to the shop. That's a legitimate, you're talking 15 minutes, 5. This is a pretty conservative estimate, I believe. I think the first one we did was much higher, and we pared it down quite a bit. So I think the bigger question is, and Councilman Diener's kind of honing in on that, if you want to capture the costs, then capture it. If you're going to just establish a fee, then establish a fee. But we can't accomplish a lower amount if we're trying to capture the cost. And part of the issue you're dealing with is even this rate for this truck is an extremely outdated rate. And you're paying prevailing wage. So we're not the most, it's the same issue we have in landscaping. We're not the most efficient people. If we were trying to save money, we're not the people to put the banners up.
Good point. So Mr. Diener has a motion to recover the cost. Other discussion on this amendment? Ms. Luca Rowley?
Our Rotary Club actually has been volunteering that effort for quite some time, and we know what that takes to change out that banner, because quite a few members have been involved. So when I saw this fee, I thought, how many people are going to be able to afford it? I don't even like the idea of the city being responsible for hanging this banner. I'm sorry to see us doing it, but I don't know what else to do. Can we find some other organization? I think it's too expensive, but on the other hand, I think the city shouldn't be losing on hanging it either.
Having been a person climbing on top of the marquee, I think it's the best solution from a liability standpoint that we shouldn't be climbing around on the marquee to hang a banner. I think Mr. Dorsey's crew is the best solution. Mr. Colecciardi?
So something on this, what we're making, this is like a joke, how many people does it take to hang a banner? But, I think Matt brought up, I saw the same thing, Matt, when he spoke earlier, talks to the language non-commercial. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that could possibly, how would you enforce something like that word non-enforceable? But I think what the intentions are, non-commercial in the language here, for non-commercial purposes?
Right.
Okay. I think the intentions here, and if we look at history, how this thing has been used is to promote, our festivals, tourism promotion, things of that like. And I don't think the intention is for a local business to hang a billboard across Bay Street. But I don't know how enforceable any of that would be. But along the inequity of this conversation, if we had a local proprietor want to utilize that as a billboard, I would think we would be adamant that we would recover the costs for this. And so I think that is a good starting point. I think the amendment being made is that we would recover the costs of what it costs our city to hang this banner. I know that sounds a little bit, and maybe there's other ways we can subsidize, but I would look to legal to how we, there is a lot of seemingly precedent out there with this whole signage issue, and that we don't create unintended problems for ourselves by passing something like this.
Mr. Mayor, I think that this was, and I may be incorrect, but I believe that what was the resolution that was brought for us this evening is the stopgap measure between how can we get up those legacy banners that our organizations are used to putting up this year until we get the new sign code in place. And then I believe that we would go back and look at this and see what the banner resolution should be. But right now, we have organizations that are wanting to put their banners up. And so this is just a means to make that happen this year. Because, once that sign code is done, we may not be able to put banners up at all. But when you ask about recovering the cost, there was a banner up for 2 weeks in February. The United Methodist Church was promoting their health fair. Now, I'm sure if we tried to recover this $300 from them, that banner probably would not have gone up. The fire department advertises its spaghetti feed. You know, those are the types of organizations that are using this. And so I want us to be cognizant of that when we put a fee on there. There's a certain amount of public service and public benefit that these banners have. And I, for one, am supportive of continuing the $100 fee and for us to spend the next period of time, whatever that is, before March 1st, when we do the banners again, that we have, and hopefully our sign code will be done by then, you know, that we can have something that is a long-term fix, and that this is just kind of an interim to get us through.
Mr. Chang?
I'd like to speak for the amendment only in that I think the word shall is clearer than the word may, which I think introduces a great deal of ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
So I would once again support the amendment of that language change.
Okay, so Mr. Diener's amendment is that we shall?
Shall collect a permitting fee for each permit to cover, and new words here, all or a portion of administration and installation costs.
Okay. After we deal with this motion, I would just hope that we would pass a motion setting that fee. So we had a second of Mr. Diener's motion. Who was that?
It was
I've
Mr.
lost track.
Chang.
I
Mr.
seconded it,
Chang.
yeah.
Okay, so we're voting on Mr. Diener's motion that we shall collect a fee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the amendment carries. Is any other amendments?
I would make an amendment that we establish a $100 fee for the 2016 banners that are hung.
Could you amend that to the legacy banner people? And would that be legal?
Okay.
And
I don't know that we even have that information.
Is the intent for that for 501c3 and nonprofit?
No, some are 503(6)s.
Okay.
C6s. I mean, there are a variety.
And fours.
And fours.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion to set the banner fee at $100
For the year
2016. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Mr. Donlin seconds that motion. Discussion of the $100 fee for 2016?
I'm not going to support it because it's too low.
Okay.
Just a quick clarification there. We just rattled off 501c, 503s, and 504s, although not by IRS definition, all nonprofit organizations.
346.
Yeah, those are all nonprofit IRS.
Have we ever had a for-profit entity attempt to do this?
Clerk Grinderson, do you recall?
We have not, because it was not allowed in our previous code. So now I think we don't have that discretion to not allow it anymore.
Well, this says non-commercial. It doesn't say nonprofit, it says non-commercial.
We've addressed that in the code, that it's for non-commercial purposes. Another discussion?
Well, that's germane to the message, not to an entity type. Non-commercial message, not non-commercial entity or non-profit entity or for-profit entity. But what I'm hearing you say is we cannot differentiate
set two
between
different
any
rates.
type of entity.
Correct.
Could be an individual, could be a for-profit, could be non-profit, whatever, that we treat everyone the same with the same rights to have the ability to hang a banner.
I think my personal opinion is what Beck spoke to earlier. This is an interim process until we get our sign code corrected, and I think we're going to get another stab at this here in the very near future. So, you know, spending all night wordsmithing and sweating $50 to $25.
Well, we don't have the specifications either.
Yeah, and that's, we've learned that staff is going to address, you know, those particular issues. So, anyone else wish to speak to the $100 application fee? Okay, seeing none, we'll be voting on the amendment to charge $100 to hang the banners in 2016. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Okay, one in opposition. We are back.
Two.
Two in opposition, sir. Sorry. We are back to the main motion unless there are any other amendments or discussion.
I guess, so Beck had asked about,
About H and B and that.
well, I think you'd asked about not allowing more than
Oh,
two. So if, I would just have a recommendation. Typically, we have that same problem with vacation schedules at the shop. And so what we do is we open up the calendar for 30 days, and it's based on seniority for the year. After 1 month, it's open to anybody at any given time. So if what you'd say is within the first 30 days, you can only take 2 slots. After a month, then you could come in for additional slots if you wanted them, but you'd reserve that first month for people that have lined up and stood in line. And then after the month, if you're not in, then you could come back and take 2 or 3 more. It doesn't matter. It's that initial signing up. So that would be just a suggestion to the council.
So that wasn't your motion.
I'm non-voting.
Is there a motion to address this issue?
Well, I had thought that the intention of your original amendment was to keep policy here and to better explain that the procedural things of design, banner, and hardware, that reside with staff. And so to clarify that language up in here.
okay. E, what Mark spoke to was letter E.
Mm-hmm.
And I was speaking to H and B and the appeal process. Okay. But when I rambled at the beginning, I did say if we could find a solution to the just 2 banners, and I could easily support the idea that Mark brought forward.
So if I heard your motion correctly, it was for the first 30 days, you're only allowed 2 slots. After the first initial 30-day period, anyone could sign up for additional slots on a first-come, first-served basis.
Yeah, sounds pretty reasonable.
That's pretty much how I said it.
She withdrew her motion, so if I believe that
was
would
a
be
new motion she
that would
just
be a new
made.
motion, and I need a second.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to allow, I think you heard what I said. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, are we ready for the main motion, or do we have any other discussion or amendments?
I don't think we've resolved Beck's initial.
She withdrew it.
I withdrew it,
so
but
she could redo it.
so that I could
Redo it.
redo
Okay.
it, and
So,
right, and
Just delete it all.
yeah, Nick indicated that deleting it would be a fine.
Well, and just to be clear, have we voted on that last amendment about the 30 days?
yes, we did.
Okay. So for policy H, I think if your intent is to take away that discretion, deleting the entire thing may be what you want to do, but I can see other things that are needed. And I mean, that specification sheet that we have that says what the banner has, how it has to be constructed, I don't know that that's a procedure or a policy. I think and also what an application form looks like or what information is required on an application form. Those to me seem like policies, not procedures. And so we would need to bring those things back to you so that you can approve them. But
Are we unable to use the existing application?
Yeah, we can.
Use it.
Change the
I
logo.
just don't know that that's a policy or a procedure. I don't know that it.
I don't either.
Well, I think a policy is to allow the banner process, and the fee should be XYZ. The
Right.
procedure is how you process the application. So what are the specification of processing the application is a process and typically is handled administratively. In my department, when I issue permits now, he's a different world, so.
Well, and And I realize this is very conversationally, but that's kind of what I thought about the appeal process. The appeal, there should be an administrative appeal. And why would someone not be allowed to put their banner up? What would they appeal? They would appeal if they weren't meeting the
Content, which we can no longer look at the content.
the content, or it's the wrong material, or they don't have enough holes for the wind to go through, or whatever. I mean, I couldn't figure out what they were appealing that wouldn't be handled administratively.
Yeah, it would be, well, I think if we adopted a policy or procedure that said it had to be constructed a certain way, they would be appealing the administrative policy as it was applied. But, you know, without the author of the resolution who crafted that language, I don't know whether to recommend that you strike it or don't strike it. It's
So are we talking about striking the appeal process?
No,
or
H.
Well, all of them. Look at H, look at B, and look at that, which is the appeal process.
Well, I think, getting rid of H is, again, this is a temporary code, right? So we
Exactly.
get rid of H.
Yep.
We, number B, I'd leave it as is. I think we want our staff to take care of these little minutia with the design of the banner, and we strike that altogether.
I'm good with
So I'd like to
those.
make a motion that we strike H and we strike the paragraph following the word that, colon.
Yeah.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion to strike H in the paragraph at the bottom that starts with that, and we have a second discussion of the amendment.
Did you get a second? He did.
Mr. Clausen seconded. Okay,
No further discussion?
no
from-
further
from me.
discussion. Staff, you have any comment, concerns with?
I've never seen striking the main, whereas, and therefore that's always like the heart of it. Improve it, so I've never seen.
We're only
that
talking
being-
about H right now, though, right?
No, we're talking about that.
H and
We're talking about
striking
that.
the paragraph that starts with that.
We're talking about.
I-
Unnecessary.
I wouldn't, I think I would postpone this before I would, well, I mean, I guess we can always come back with a different resolution and redo it, but to me, I think
Temporary deal.
How about it's good for 30 days?
either you're designating me or the clerk or Mark to administer this program, and that's what that section is doing.
But it says that in B.
Right.
Right, but that section is the accumulation of the resolution. That's the only part that you're actually resolving.
Okay, then what I would do is
Right,
I
it's the
would,
action.
under that, I would eliminate the second sentence.
Appeals may be made to the
Motion
city
maker
council.
said.
Where you're referring to where it starts with appeals?
I would not do that because I think that would send an appeal directly to Superior Court if somebody had an appeal, rather than
Going there
allowing
anyway.
counsel to correct something.
Overcomplicating
I-
this.
yeah, we
Until we
are.
get our sign code, you know what? They're gonna appeal it to the Supreme Court anyway. Let's hang up a banner and we'll deal with it.
Okay, our attorney, though, is recommending that we don't
Okay.
strike that.
Perfect.
The paragraph with that.
Great.
So, are you comfortable with a friendly amendment that we are only striking H
Yes.
out of this? And the second is comfortable with that?
Second agrees.
I'm not totally sure that that's something that I would or wouldn't do at this point in time. I really can't. I think that if we were talking about policies related to other permit applications, the contents of an application for that banner permit would absolutely be a policy. If we're talking about a building permit or a subdivision permit, those are policies that are established in our code. And so I think the language about creating policy, if you're wanting that authority, we have to bring the application to you so that you can adopt the application as saying this is our official application. That, I think that's, but it's semantics, I think, as well. I'm not.
Sharon, do you have an opinion? Should we take this vote?
Should we table this until they've had an opportunity to tweak it and bring
Yeah.
it back?
Is there a time?
Are we,
Who are we hanging up from not allowing their banner?
We can't hang a
There's
banner.
a banner that's scheduled to go up the end of April. I would have to check to see if it's before or after the
Right.
26th council meeting. 26, 20.
Nothing before that.
Study session. So I think there's a banner that's either due to be hung or requesting to be hung on the 26th or the 27th. So they would be delayed a day or two if we postpone this action tonight.
Of April.
Oh, of April.
I was
Oh,
going to say,
geez.
don't we have a couple meetings
Yeah.
before then?
Meetings in
Sorry,
April.
I thought we were in, never mind. I don't know what I was
Okay.
thinking.
Why don't we, so we
Wrong
need to
month.
deal with this amendment first?
Mayor, I move that we table this issue to the first meeting in April.
I second that.
Okay, a motion a second to table this, the first meeting in April. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're moving on.
Boy, I sure didn't mean to cancel.
That was
I
Or
wasn't
with
giving up.
something else that we could place on record.
All right, we are on to item 7I, adopting a resolution approving a contract with HDR Inc. for the Well 9 water quality retrofit design, procurement procedure documentation. Mr. Dorsey.
I'm hoping that this is less contentious than the banner. Okay, so in 2014, and in association with the Well 9 Improvement Project closeout, professional engineer peer review services with HDR Engineering were contracted through the Office of McGavitt Graves, being the city attorney for the city of Port Orchard at that time. In January of 2015, upon separation with the McGavitt Graves, the city of Port Orchard continued with the professional engineering peer review services directly with HDR Engineering Incorporated, as the Well 9 Improvement Project closeout task was still in progress. The city is now moving forward with the 2016 water quality retrofit design phase of the project and has received a proposal from HDR Engineering Incorporated in the amount of $155,400. Being the engineer of record for the Well 9 Improvement Project closeout peer review, staff has determined that HDR Engineering Incorporated is the most qualified firm to continue with the Well 9 2016 water quality retrofit design task. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 004-16, thereby approving the contract number 006-16 with HDR Engineering in an amount not to exceed $155,400 for the 2016 Well 9 water quality retrofit design and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80. And I would like to note that we did budget $135,000 for this as part of the approved 2016 budget. Additional scope associated with geotechnical work that was required brought the estimate above the original amount by about $20,000. A budget amendment will be required from the Water Sewer Fund to cover that.
Is there a motion? Mr. Lucarelli.
I move to adopt a resolution thereby approving a contract with HDR Engineering, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $155,400 for the 2016 Well Number 9 water quality retrofit design and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion of this item? Mr. Donald? No? You weren't raising your hand?
Pen flicking.
Seeing no discussion, we'll be voting to approve a resolution for a contract with HDR Engineering, Inc. for the for Well 9. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We did have one item that came from earlier that we were wanting to address our agenda order. Did someone want to make a motion to that effect?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would make the motion that our agenda order place the approval of the agenda directly after the Pledge of Allegiance and prior to citizens' comments.
Second.
Motion and a second to amend our agenda, putting approval of the agenda ahead of citizen comments. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, we are to reports of council committees. Mr. Clausen, does Finance Committee met? Have a report?
Nope, we're scheduled to meet the 28th at 7:30 a.m.
Okay. Economic Development and Tourism?
Yes, we met on Monday, March 14th. We had invited the Port Orchard Bay Street Association and the Port Orchard Chamber of Commerce to our meeting, and we discussed signage needs. We had a presentation from KEDA, the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. They gave us an overview of business needs and tools and economic development strategies. We reviewed the public event toolkit, which was Mr. Murphy brought to our attention this evening, that is now active and on the website. We discussed just some broad ideas about property tax exemption programs as an economic development tool. And we, what I would like to bring to everyone's attention is that the committee did ask to have the economic development element of the draft of that for our comprehensive plan sent to all council members, and I believe that happened this last week. The last time we had looked at that was in February of 2015, and we were wanting council to take a look at it, provide any comments back to the Community Development Department, and we'll discuss it at our next meeting before it has its regular public hearing for the during our comprehensive plan update. And that's what we did at Economic Development. Our next meeting will be April 11th at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Utilities Committee.
The Utilities Committee for March was canceled due to lack of items. Okay. So we'll be meeting April 18th at 9:30.
Sewer Advisory.
The next meeting for the Sewer Advisory meeting is April 20th.
Okay. Land Use.
Land Use did not have a scheduled meeting because of 3 absences, so we're scheduled to meet on March 30th at 7:30 a.m. here in City Hall.
Okay. Lodging tax.
There was no lodging tax meeting, but I did have an informal meeting with representatives of PSE yesterday with the Public Works Director, and they will be coming back to the committee with a presentation next month. What I saw were just some basic maps of where our power comes from, and it's going to be very interesting.
Festival Chimes and Lights, is there anything to report?
Yes, we did meet on March 14th. We had great attendance. We had feedback from quite a few of the organizations that participated in 2015 with some great suggestions for this year. Of concern, Public Works Department talked about needing to replace the garland and the wreaths that we have in the city. We've got some suggestions. We're going to see if there's any way that we can just repair them for another year's use, but we need to start getting some quotes on replacing those, as well as concerns about the Christmas tree. It's very difficult to find that size tree, and Public Works said they pretty much got the last large tree out of the lot where they're used to getting the tree, and we need to look for another source for our large tree. They suggested maybe an artificial tree. There's a lot more discussion that has to be had, and we'll be bringing this information back to the full council. Probably a work study with more information in the future.
Other committee reports? For the mayor, I would say the biggest issue this last night was the second of 3 public hearings for the health district. It was held here at City Hall. We had a packed house with folks testifying about the proposed vaping ordinance by the health district. I think we can all agree, and even the folks that were testifying, that we need, so these vaping devices in the industry is not regulated at all by the state or the federal government. And everyone in the audience can agree, and I think we can all agree as a society that we need to get these devices out of the hands of youth. Most people were in agreement that it shouldn't be in public places, restaurants, grocery store. The slippery slope is really the regulation of the vaping lounges. And our public health officer, Dr. Turner, is proposing some fairly strict regulation. And the concern is that there really isn't any data to support our position. That's the difficult part of this, and so we're continuing to take testimony. My personal opinion is, I guess I would prefer to have that in an establishment where that's going on versus people congregating on street corners or other public places doing the activity. So there's regulations coming. There is concern that a couple of other counties have enacted ordinances, and litigation from the industry has came forward. So, anybody have strong opinions about it? Since I'm your representative.
Just a question. So the litigation, was that on vaping lounges or on other restrictions?
The biggest heartburn is on the regulations on the lounges. I have concerns where, if Mr. Chang wants to do that, that's his personal choice, but Ms. Aspey shouldn't be affected by that. And particularly, one of the businesses we have in our community, it's in a strip mall. And, probably we need to require that they have an independent HVAC system, and it isn't affecting the neighboring tenants in the business. These folks have, invested in a business, have a business in our community, signed leases, so they're trying to protect their investment. So I see both sides of it. It's a difficult issue. Mr. Chang?
I think I'm neutral. I don't know how different the vaping law should be from smoking.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me where you can smoke, you might be able to vape as well.
And that's really where we're at with these ordinances, other than there isn't a smoking lounge establishment. And by law, state law, you can't have them. And the state's stayed out of this. And so, that's the part we're having, I think more than anything, we're having trouble with the regulation, and when there isn't scientific data to support us in potential litigation.
I think the vaping lounges, pretty much just by their name, indicate what's going on in there. And I think any citizen that doesn't want to be exposed to that, just don't go. It's simple.
And I'll add
not
that
overregulate those industries. I think if anything, you'd want to have my personal opinion is I'd rather see people vaping than smoking. I don't have scientific evidence to back that, but it just seems
nicer,
to me.
Actually.
Well, yeah.
Mr. Diener?
I was just going to say, I think other jurisdictions have looked at the issue and have decided if people want to put together a hookah lounge, they can. But the employees that work there then have protections from the lounge area. So there's a door that smoke doesn't go into the areas that they work and those kinds of things. So, I mean, I guess if people want to set that up as a business and the state's not stepping in, other jurisdictions have looked at ways of making that a safer work environment for the non-smokers.
Mm-hmm. We had employees that actually were testifying last night, and they enjoy the work environment with all of the vapor in there. You've somewhat confirmed my personal beliefs, and I just wanted to bounce that off since we'll be passing an ordinance fairly soon. So we are on to report of department heads. Mr. Dorsey, do you have an opinion on vaping?
I've got 4 hopefully quick announcements. So first, on the DeKalb Pier Phase 2, we have issued the notice to proceed, but we have a bit of a hiccup that I don't see as being insurmountable. We do have to do a shoreline hearing for the installation of the new floats. We're already okay to remove the old floats because that fell under an exemption. So I didn't want you to freak out when you saw that city had a hearing on the DeKalb Pier. We just needed to have a hearing and get our shoreline permit for the installation. Bethel paving, see that going to add April 8th, I believe. At least that's what we're shooting for. Tremont, this Thursday, we'll be giving our presentation to the KRCC Trans Paul, which is in advance of our actual presentation and submittal for our regional funding to PSRC, and ultimately a presentation to the Puget Sound Regional Council, Regional Project Evaluation Committee, or RPEC. And once we're through that process, and depending on how we score, then we'll be going back through the countywide for funding. Then we'll be going through Transportation Improvement Board in August. And we're also going to be pursuing a WashDOT bike ped grant potential. So we're leaving no rock unturned. Bay Street pedestrian path, as you know, the good news is in the budget we're successful in moving $500,000 of the $3.5 million out of the 2019-2021 budget, and working with the Department of Transportation earlier at the end of last week. It looks like we're going to be able to put $100,000 of the $500 in the 2015-17 budget, which means we can actually do the ad-ready design for just segment 3 this year. And I'm working on getting a proposal. Then we would then put 400 of that 5 in the 17-19 budget, so that we can actually start construction and finish construction of segment 3 within that biennium. And then we would then stop until 2019 to 21, where then we would have all the acquisitions done that are required to then do the complete project. So that's kind of where we're at on capital projects.
Mr. Bott?
Just one announcement. Our comprehensive plan is moving along. The last couple of elements are going forward here in April to the Planning Commission. We also had a good conversation with PSRC today concerning our transportation element. We wanted to give them an opportunity to review the draft element, and they didn't have any significant concerns on that, so hopefully that bodes well for eventual certification once the plan is complete. And that's all.
Ms. Cates, you have a report for us?
I have nothing this week.
Okay. Mr. Clerk Anderson.
Yeah, so I provided a letter to the Kitsap County Commissioners, I believe is who it's going to, or the Planning Commissioners, Planning Department, that Nick Bond drafted a letter for the council members to sign, and I think I set it on that side of the dais, so if you can work your way down, if you haven't already, I can get all those signatures and sent off to where it needs to be sent. That would be appreciated. And then
To your new form?
Oh, yes. And then I know that there's been some conversations about maybe it would be nice to write down the motions before we take or state the motions. So I took the liberty of ordering those forms. And if you guys like that, then we can continue with it. If not, then we will use them up and be done with them. So,
particular maybe for an amendment?
Yeah.
And I want to make sure Mr. Dorsey gets one of these because...
And that was just at the recommendation from the parliamentarian training that we received. So it's just, we'll try something new. And then lastly, we do have in the city clerk's department, the administrative assistant too, who started. I believe she's on her second week here, and she's in the back with Janine. So you'll see them here, I think, one more time, and then she will be on her own. So, yeah, other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. On citizens' comment. Anyone? Yes? Ms. Middleton?
Back again. I wanted to share with you that we're opening a new gallery on Bay Street. It's a very nice young woman her husband is in the Navy, and she's planning on being here for 7 years, and hopefully she'll make a go of it. It is where the Crazy Lady Gallery was before. They're going to have a grand opening on April 1st with a Navy band and a whole bunch of activities, and it will start at 2 o'clock and go till 10. I'm gravely disappointed. If I wish to share this information with you next week, I'd have to wait through this whole process. It's not effective for us. There were 6 of us that spoke, sharing with you our needs. Early on, after the election, all the new people, I said that I wanted everyone to earn my trust. I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I am gravely disappointed. It is not so much to ask that someone who comes in wants to share with the council. Lots of people are inexperienced. Take the little lady that came a couple of times last year. She would have to wait through this whole entire meeting. Why is it so important that you can't hear us? So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm really disappointed. I expected better. I thought we were working together better. I appreciate that you have business, but it's just not that much to ask. We wait for you guys. So thank you.
Sherman.
I also am very disappointed in all of you. First of all, there was some backsliding here tonight. 3 of you didn't attend the study session because you probably had other important things to be at. But at the end of that study session, Ms. Reinerson was directed by the people that were here to keep track of the minutes. And after she gave her report, after the people here had given the report, she was to say how many minutes were left to the council for citizen comment. Now that to me is trying to limit what people can say. And of all the important things that this council has to work on to bring this forward this early after you guys have been elected is a real eye-opener as to really what you want to hear and what you want from this community. Thank you.
Mr. Petra.
I do believe the whole ordinance, including this citizens' comments at the beginning and citizen comments at the end, is a way to stifle input from the public. None of you have been in city government when it worked before, except for Mr. Clausen. In the old council prior to 2006, throughout the entire agenda, a person could raise their hand, get called on by the mayor, and put input on every resolution. Tonight, I wanted to say something so bad when you're talking about this banner, because I know the history of the banner. You guys shouldn't even be dealing with the banner, and it should have never been given up from District 7. You want to know why? Because it was always a fundraiser for the fire department. We had a volunteer fire department for years and years and years in this city. And putting up the banner, the fire department took it on so that they could charge a fee for their events for the volunteer fire department. When District 7 took over our fire department, they were to take on that responsibility forever. You shouldn't even be having to deal with that. And I would have loved to have been able to, instead of waiting to the end of this meeting, just raise my hand as a good citizen, and you could have called on me, and I would have pointed that out to you. District 7 should be hanging that banner. They agreed to do it, and you should enforce that. And I, as a citizen, would have liked to share that with you while you're talking. None of you knew that, did you? Did you know that?
Yes, we did.
We do.
Did you know that they were supposed to do that with the agreement of taking over our fire department? So why aren't you making them stand up to what they agreed to? And why are we wasting our city tax money to do that? And I would have liked to have shared that while you were talking about that. That's why this whole ordinance, you should get rid of it. Because sometimes while you're doing business, there's a citizen that may know more about a subject than anything and needs to share it. And then you have dialogue from the elected to the citizens that are here. That whole ordinance came in because some people didn't want to hear what people had to say, because people had opinions. And the meetings may have been long, and it might not have been simple and fast, but people had conduit to its elected officials of the government. You should abolish the whole thing. Get rid of the beginning and the end. Have a time for announcements, maybe at the end, but as you do business and people want to share, you should be able to talk to them. And many a times, I used to love that when we did Fathoms of Fun and they were trying to run the carnival out of town. Remember that? I could come up and talk to the government, and the government could ask me questions. Well, why is this, Brian? Why is that? I could answer it. We had dialogue.
Mr. Petro, your
and that's
time's up.
what made our community great, and we're losing it.
Thank you, Mr. Petro. Mr. Murphy, you have a comment?
I do. As the sun sets in the city of Port Orchard and in South Kitsap, I would like to say that in the end, I have confidence in you to do what is right by the city, by South Kitsap, and by its citizens. So I hope that at the decisions that you make, as you think about them and as they're proposed, that you take into consideration everything that you've heard here today and truly act in the best interest of the area. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart.
Bobby Stewart, Old Central Antique Mall. And I have been, this is a whole different subject from anything that anyone has said tonight, but I have been going around town and the merchants have a concern that I'm just bringing to you. I know it's not something you'll solve this moment, and I trust you'll at least look at it. They would like our parking downtown to be extended instead of the 2 hours to 3 hours or whatever you felt would be right, so that a customer could shop and maybe have their hair done or maybe have lunch and not have to move the car. So that is their concern. I've pretty much talked to every merchant downtown, and they just need a little more time. So if that could be put in a work study or consideration, I would really appreciate it. Well, they would appreciate it. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bobby. Other comments? Seeing none?
I have a good of the order.
Okay, go to the order.
Yes, I have a good of the order. And I am actively involved with the Port Orchard Chambers Shop SK First Committee. And we are organizing the annual pancake feed at McClendon's Hardware for new council members. It's April 3rd. It's April 30th this year. It's a Saturday. Scott McClendon's Hardware does a free pancake feed. They supply all of the materials, but they ask for help cooking the pancake, cooking the sausage, and serving. And I am here inviting the council and the mayor, if anyone would like to join us with whatever time you have. We could use your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, the meeting's adjourned.